Hey, DIY Dad here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Lumary app and how these lights work. And to do that, I've set up sort of a test bed. So what I'm going to do is set this up so that you all can see my iPhone screen so I can have the app up. Then we're going to have this little test bed back behind us that we can use to manipulate the app and see what it does without having to project it onto the house, which is one of the downfalls of, one of a couple downfalls of this particular piece of software. So I'm going to walk you through it, talk you through basic setup, configuration, and then we'll play around with some of the DIY settings and show you what you can do. Here we go. So by way of orientation, what we have here is a single strand of the Gen 2 Eave lights. And I've got these set up on just an old piece of shelving. And I've got 15 of the lights. So controller and stuff is running across there. And these are going to sweep then from right to left for most of the pattern. So this is my source point over here. So if you're feeding your lights from the other side, everything I'm about to do is going to be reversed. But that's what we're looking at. That should let us experiment a bit. Okay, from this point on then, I'm going to switch so that you're seeing this setup, but from a different camera that I have set up right there. And then you're going to see my screen on the side. Hopefully this will work. All right, so here we go. We have our setup running. I am filming directly into a light source, so I'm sure it's going to cause the camera to be very upset with me. But the first thing we're going to do is load the Lumary app. Now this is a Gen 2 set of lights, so it's going to be the newer version of the control interface. I'll probably do one for the Gen 1 since I have a couple of those as well. But if this looks slightly different than yours, no, the settings are almost identical. There's just a few changes to visually how it works and how it looks. Load up the app here. And I'm actually going to turn these off for a second so you can see this kind of from its startup mode. So this is the initial presentation of the application once you select your device. So if I close this here to kind of show you, the app is going to display all of your devices that you have. I have several Lumary devices. The one that we're working with specifically is this one down here called Roofline. There's different settings and different options depending on the device that you have. So when you go into a device, your entire experience changes based on what you've got. You do have the ability to build groups. I'll show you that in a later video as well. That allows you to apply one scene or one set of configurations across multiple different strands or across multiple different Lumary light interfaces. The trick, however, is they have to all be running the same version, which means my Gen 2 lights cannot be blended with the Gen 1s. So I have to configure things separately if you have, say, like my house, the roofline running one style and the peaks running an older style. So I'm going to go into my roofline group here by tapping on that. So this is, again, our initial presentation then. When you first go in, after you've paired, after you've done all of those steps with the app. Now, if you haven't paired yet, to do so, there's a button on the main controller that you press and hold, and then these will start to flash white, and that puts them into pairing mode. Everything else is pretty straightforward from there. Now, from this interface, the first thing we're going to do is go to where it says More at the bottom. And the reason we're doing that is because my strand here only has 15 lights in it. But this is meant to be about 120 light strand. It's meant to be, I think, a 200-foot long strand. I'm obviously not using all of it. But the way LEDs address factors into this. So almost all of your LED lights are going to work exactly the same. They work in sequence, which means you have your control box and you have the start of your strand. And essentially what the controller is doing is it's sending commands out to the lights based on their position from that first light. So when you're looking at, say, a 200-foot strand that's supposed to have 120 lights, it expects there to be 120 things that it can address. Even if there aren't, it doesn't have a way of knowing that not all of those lights are actually there. So it's going to send signals even to the lights that are well off past the end of the strand, which can cause some of your patterns to not make much sense. So when this light strand is being used, what the system is doing is it's saying, okay, light number 1, turn on. And then the next one down the strand is light number 2. So when it flows or does a pattern, it's just moving the assignment down the line as it goes. Since we only have 15 lights in my little test bed, I have to adjust those settings so that the light patterns understand when they're supposed to cycle. Otherwise, what you would see is it would do something and then it would just hold, because it's still addressing all those lights that it thinks are out there, even though they're not. So to address that in the Lumary app, we need to tell the system that we don't have as many lights as the strand thinks that we're supposed to. To do that, we're going to go to More on the right-hand side there by the bottom corner of the image. And then we're going to go to Point Settings. So Point Settings is literally how many points of light are on the string. So see, initially, it expects there to be 120. I need it to say 15. So I'm going to grab this slider and I'm going to bring this down until we get to 15 lights. Yes, I wish I could just type it, but we can't, so I have to kind of strand and get between 14 and 16 here. 15. So 15 points of light. We're going to hit confirm. So that's now set, and we'll hit the little back arrow here in the corner. So now my light strand understands that it's only 15 lights long. Now to turn the light on, we're going to hit that power button on the left. And then the image lights up to let you know that your lights are turned on. And then it lights the lights, but you'll notice that the image displayed has nothing to do with what's actually happening in my light panel here. I've got a rainbow thing going, the image just shows white. I wish that they previewed the pattern that you have selected in that image, but that's not the way this app works, at least not now. So looking at what we do have then in the app, that top section, I mean, it's more or less wasted. It's just whether or not the lights are on. But as you go down, you'll see that we have first a row that has 5 buttons for different modes. So there's a color mode, there's a scene mode, rhythmic mode, DIY mode, and then something called saved. We'll go back to color. What color allows us to do is it allows us to say all of my lights need to be a single color. By default, that's going to be white, but white is kind of a fluid concept when it comes to LEDs, so it's allowing you to change the temperature of the white. So if I want it to be bright white, there's a button for that over on the right. I can also choose to go more of a warmer white if that matches the other lights on my house, or a very warm white, which is kind of orange. Again, depending on the types of lights you're trying to match to. So if you have incandescents running in the front of your house, and you want to be able to have that go across so that you can see and have it look like everything's meant to go together, this will allow you to do that. Now, right underneath that row of 5 buttons, you'll see where it says white highlighted in blue. If I go to the left of white, that's color. So color then allows me, again, addressing the entire string as one thing, to choose to light all 15 of those bulbs in a specific color. So I can say I want it to be blue, or pink, or teal, and it's going to change the lights to match that. Now it gives you a couple lights at the top. There's red, yellow, green, and blue. If you want the pure color of that, you have those options. You also have a brightness selector, so you can bring this down if you want them to be more subtle. Interesting note, the brightness selector only seems to really work for these initial color and white settings. Once you get into any of the themes, any of the patterns, it's going to go back to full brightness. And I haven't found a way to undo that. Now, the other note about this is when you're in this color mode, you have the ability to independently control the bulbs. To do that, you need to click that button that says Select All. So right now, the way the thought of this is running is that I am selecting all of my lights for configuration. So it's going to apply my settings to all of them. If you hit Select All, that will switch it into this display. And what this is showing you are those 15 lights that are addressable from the interface. So again, it starts at the front, that's light number 1, and it works its way down. So in my setting, light number 1 is the one to the far right. If I select that light, and then say red, so I hit red, and then I went up and tapped on light 1, it'll turn just light 1 red. If I do the same thing to light 13, you can see the opposite side is doing that. I could also choose to specifically turn lights off. So if I only wanted lights 1 and 15 on, I could switch and say, well, now I want to turn lights off. So I'm selecting the no light option. And then any light that I tap is going to turn off in sequence in my case from right to left. And now I just have those two red lights on the corner. So if for some reason, let's say these are up on the roof line of my house, and I just wanted the lights on the corners of the roof to turn on, or just the lights over the front door as kind of a security setting, I could do that. Now in the Gen 2 version of the app, you can save this. In the Gen 1 version, you can't, which means the settings that you put in place will go away and will get lost each and every time you restart the app. So since I can save this, if I want to have the red corners, I can hit save, and then I can give it a name. So call this red corner or red corn. Other little thing kind of awkward about this app, see, it gives you that massive big field. You are limited to 8 characters on a name. So you got to get a little creative with what you call things. I'm not exactly sure why. That's just the way that runs. So I've saved that design. That's going to show up under my saved now. So anytime I want to, I can recall that and pull it back and not have to configure it. I'll go back into my color. I'm going to go back to select all. So right now it says check. The other interesting thing about how this works is it's showing you what the current mode is, but not what the option is. So the mode right now is checked. You're checking the ones that you want to make adjustments to. If you want to select all, you switch it from check to select all, and then it's going to apply it to everybody. But note, the second I did that, I lost my config. Now I've saved it so I can go back and pull it up. If I hadn't, this would be where I get really frustrated. So I'm in check mode again, so if I want to turn on a middle light as yellow, I can do that. And then I could say, let's have green next to them, and then blue, right? And I can build my little rainbow pattern out however I want from there. So that's color mode. If you want to select all or go back to everything, just hit select all, and then you can choose what you want to apply from there. Okay, we've configured our lights, we played around with color mode. Let's take a look at some of the scenes. Now, I'm not going to go through these. The scenes are all preset by Lumary. They are broken up into categories. I don't know that I'm fully convinced with the way these are built. There are some like color scenes, which basically is preset color. It's a little awkward that they're here. The names are interesting to me, like Warmambool cheese and butter. Okay. Violet makes sense. It's purple, right? Dodge blue. I don't know why it's Dodge blue and not just blue, but I'm sure this makes sense at some point. White mourning, but mourning spelled M-O-U, which means sadness. I don't know. So there's options here that you can turn on and off. There are specific moods as well. So if you want your lights to feel gorgeous, it'll go into this pattern. If you want to switch to dazzling, it'll do that. Now, the only thing that really changes from a standpoint of the graphic on the top is when you do go from color to scene, it does seem like sometimes that switches from yellow. Maybe it's just rotating. I'm not sure. All right, so in riotous profusion, but you'll see there's a bunch of these, and they do different things. The names don't really mean a whole lot to me in the way that these are designed. So it's really kind of an experiment and see what you think. Like American Flag Day. Right, I mean, that kind of makes sense. It's red, white, and blue, and it rotates through. Independence Day does that same pattern just a lot faster. Lincoln Memorial Day, very, very similar to American Flag Day, right? Just slightly different. And there's ones for Washington's birthday if you're somebody who celebrates Washington's birthday with your lights. Halloween, kind of a rainbow pattern. So I don't know, interesting stuff. Useful or not, depending on whether you like any of these. You do have the ability to favorite ones. If you find ones that you like using, you can hit edit here, right in the top. There's an option to set them as a favorite. And then that will allow them, I believe, to show up under your saved. Nope, no, I am wrong. Oh, favorite just makes them slightly more highlighted. So you can see the icon for Halloween is just a little bit brighter. So I guess easier to find in the big set of options here. This is work mode, which seems like it just means on. Spring Bud goes through a few things. Like there's some interesting patterns. I've experimented with a few of them. Not been super enthralled with them. Well, that one's very difficult to look at too, so let's switch it to reading mode. Okay, so we've talked through color, we've talked through scene. Let's talk rhythmic. Rhythmic is an interesting one for me. If these were indoor lights, I would fully be behind what rhythmic does. Rhythmic makes these lights sound reactive, and it works off of the little control box, which is currently sitting on my floor that has the button on it, which means if you were, say, running these on your house, you would have to have some sort of a speaker sitting next to that control box so that it can hear what's happening and adjust appropriately. So I'm going to select rhythmic. So it's going to start reacting to my voice. And there's different patterns of how you want it to react. But as I talk, it's going through and adjusting, and that's based on the box on the floor. So if I go rock mode, see it's a slightly different pattern. Classic would be another one that's just how it's choosing to explode out. So really for these, it's put them on your house, see which one makes the most sense for what you're trying to do, assuming again that you have an audio source in the room for it to react to. If this was inside and we wanted these just reacting as we go, great, but these are intended to be outside, so it's a little bit of an awkward setup that the only option that I seem to have is based on that box. There's a button here that says local music, and I've tried clicking it. It doesn't seem to do anything. So it doesn't like to, or doesn't seem to put me off to any ability to say, I want to feed it from my phone and have it play the MP3 on my phone. It has to be able to hear what's going on from the microphone. Okay, let's get to where we want to spend the majority of our time since this is a DIY channel. I'm going to turn rhythmic off here. All right, we'll go over to DIY. DIY is where you build DIY scenes. So where we can actually configure and say, I have my own light patterns that I want to use on my house. Now what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to show you the scenes that are available, and we're going to set up a pretty simple one to begin with. We'll just use 4 colors and you'll be able to see what the patterns do. So this is the custom scene DIY screen. So you see I have custom scene as an option here. My motion effect is preset to gradient. Paragraph, the subsection or sectioned is allowing you to say, are you addressing the entire strand or portions of the strand, which changes the way the light pattern behavior works. It doesn't allow you to choose what the subsections are. So I can't say, I want to control this wall of my house separate from another one. It chooses for you. Change speed is how quickly the colors rotate, and then brightness is how bright the pattern actually is. So I'm going to add a few colors to this. I'm going to add blue. So we've got red, green, blue, and then let's actually go white. Let's add white, so right in the center, and then we'll add blue, just to stop it from trying to fade from green to blue. Okay, so I've got my 4 colors. Now, right now, and the way this DIY program works, the way that you preview what you're doing is on your house. So if you don't have a test bed like mine, where it's sitting here and you're able to film it, you have to stand outside in 5-degree weather if you're in Minnesota today, and hit preview and it sends it to your house. But we're here, we've got our test set up, so we can make this work. So I've got these 4 colors, we're set to gradient. I'm going to hit preview, and it's going to preview the design. So it's those 4 colors. Gradient is going to be a calm fade between the colors in my pattern. Now change speed is how quickly it's going to fade. So if I bring that change speed up and then hit preview again, now it's fading much faster. I bring the change speed down and hit preview, now it's going to go a lot slower. But it's running through my colors as it goes. I can change the brightness if I like, get it set for however I'd like it to be. Okay, so that's gradient, right? Subsectioned or sectioned it's just going to do gradient fading in smaller groups. So instead of addressing the entire strand, now it's addressing parts of the strand. And it's based on how many lights you have and how big the pattern is. Okay, other scenes. So there's a bunch of these. They don't make, well, you'll see. So static. If I turn static on, static just means whatever lights I've selected, run them constantly on. So you can see it's red, green, white, and blue, and it's running those right to left because that's the way I've got my lights set up. So a little bit opposite from what my phone is showing. But they're not going to change. They're just going to sit there. Static colors, pretty easy to get. Gradient we talked about. The next one is called jump. So again, same 4 colors. I'm going to move my change speed back up to 50% here, give or take. And hit preview. So this is jump. So jump is those 4 colors, but now it's just jumping between light patterns. So it's moving them down the line as it goes. And the pattern is moving from left to right. So from the end of your strand back to the beginning, and it's just filtering through. After jump, we have breathe. Preview that. So breathe illuminates your entire pattern across the strand. And then it's going to fade them on and off, but it's going to do that when it goes down to black. So it breathes out, and then it breathes back. Lights stay in the same position, and just run across your strand. Okay. Next to breathe, we have flashing. Turn that one on for you. No big surprise. Flashing is going to be your pattern, but flashing. So changing the speed is going to be how fast it's flashing. If you really want to bother your neighbors, you can have it flash essentially as strobe lights. Put her back to about 50%. Next to flashing, we have meteor. Preview that one. So meteor is going to run your lights from essentially your starting point to your end. You can choose whether you want to run on this one clockwise or counterclockwise, which means from the start to the end or backwards. So if I select counterclockwise and hit preview, now it's going to run the same thing back the other direction. But it's supposed to look kind of like a meteor running through. You have options on this. You can go from meteor to meteor shower. So meteor shower, instead of running one at a time, now it's running all 4. If this was a longer strand, it would be more obvious. These sort of like sail together and then fade out afterwards. If I go colorful meteor, it's just more of a gradient flow, and it's just a bunch of them rolling across. After meteor, we have pile up. So pile up is going to start on one end and run itself down to the other as the colors pile up. So again, it knows your pattern. So I've got my red, green, blue, white, white, blue. And it's going to pile them up until it's done. Then it shuts the whole thing off, starts again from a different point in the pattern. So now it's starting with blue instead of red. It'll work its way across. I can choose whether I want that to be subsectioned or sectioned. I'm in section right now. If I go to subsection, I believe then it's going to do the entire strand in one color and then flash to black, and then it will do the entire strand in the next color. Okay, so it's going across. Yep, and now it's going green, and it'll keep going that way. Again, clockwise or counterclockwise, just what direction is the flow running. Next to pile up, we have falling. Falling doesn't have a clockwise or counterclockwise. We'll preview that. So falling is very similar to pile up, but it's doing it in groups of about 3 or 4. So it's working its way across until it builds, and then it will reset. After falling, we have follow. So here's follow. So this is just kind of your typical light sweep. So it's your pattern rolling across. The lights are going to roll and just keep going through. After follow, we have flutter. So here's flutter. It's your pattern, but with a black in between each of the color patterns. So you have red and then black, and then green, and then black, and then blue, and then black. So you get that across. So it's not as even as a fade. You get a couple gaps between the colors. We'll go flowing. Here's flowing. Same thing as the last one, except without the gap. Looks a lot like follow, actually. Let's see if flowing and follow have much of a difference. Okay, so follow does the whole strand. Flowing does the pattern. It's basically subsectioned or sectioned. All right, same concept, though. For flowing, we have rainbow. So rainbow goes through kind of a crossfade of your colors. So it takes the colors of your pattern and it just fades them across in a more random fashion. Not quite a linear flow, kind of transitioning each color independently. All right, after rainbow, we have flash. So flash is going to light your strand up in more or less a random way. So it goes through one color at a time from your pattern and picks independent sections and groupings of lights, builds them until the entire strand is lit, then goes to black and does the next color in the order. All right, rebound. So rebound, it rebounds. Think of it like the old game Pong. So it's your light pattern and it's bouncing back and forth and it's switching from the first two colors to the last two colors in my case because I have 4 each time it hits. So red and green are going across and then blue and white come back. I can choose to section that if I want. Well, it looks like it acts pretty much exactly the same in my case. Let's go subsectioned. Yeah, not seeing much of a difference in those two. Transition type, bounce, I think is our default. Oh, we're slightly different now. Now it's doing just a single color. Maybe that's what was going on before. Since I didn't have a transition type, oh, it's just acting strange. Weird. All right, color rebound must be what the default was. So color rebound is half of your colors bouncing back and forth. Bounce is a full color bouncing back and forth. And I'm not sure from looking at this what the difference is between sectioned and subsection, because they seem to do exactly the same thing. All right, next to rebound we have shuttle. So shuttle is just groupings of your colors running back and forth across the scene. So the blues and the whites are flowing back. It's kind of like that alien game Space Invaders, if you ever played that. And they just run back around. To left, random. Random is kind of a crazy one. Easier to see if I slow it down a little bit. So random is randomly lighting up different lights in the different colors of your pattern. This one works really nicely for like a nightclub effect. It's also very similar to a lot of the standard patterns you see for Christmas lights. If you speed this one up, it gets very insane to look at. So if you're going for like an alien UFO landing kind of thing, it can work pretty well for that. We experimented with this for our Christmas lights, but it was a little too crazy for what we were looking for today. All right, and then last but not least, we have switch. So switch is moving back and forth between the lights in your pattern with a little black spot in the middle. Default transition type is stagger. If I switch it to sync, then they're going to jump without the black spot in the middle. So it's starting from either end of your string, running across till they meet in the center, and then going back, either with or without a gap. So with our DIY then, if we find one we like, I'm going to switch this over to shuttle because it's a little bit less difficult to look at. So if I liked this pattern and I want to be able to use this and recall this and have this be the pattern that I use on my house, our option then, or our best thing to do, is going to be to save it. So you have a name up here at the top. That name, however, I believe is not what it's going to actually save it as. So let me call this, I'll go 4-color shuttle. Right, nice big name across the top. When I go to save, however, it's going to come up and say, well, actually, no, your name has to be between 1 and 10 characters. So I can keep writing across here, but if I actually want to use this for anything, I have to limit it down to 10 characters in this case. So I'll go 4-color SH, 4-colors. Save it. So that was saved successfully. That will now show up in my DIY setup right here across the top. So it gives me my 4 colors from the pattern and allows me to select that. So that's your basic configuration for a Gen 2 setup. I'm going to show you timers in a later video. There is an issue, I think, with the latest update of the app where it actually kind of broke timers a little bit. We'll get to that later, but that's how you configure, how you set, and how you save some options for your DIY set. So this being the end of a DIY dad video, I of course owe you a dad joke, and since we're like 2 weeks from Christmas and we're talking Christmas lights, how much does it cost Santa to park his sleigh every day? Nothing. It's on the house. All right, remember with any DIY project, most important step is just to do it. No one's going to see the flaws unless you point them out to them. Have a great day, stay safe, catch you on the next one. Bye.